So this conference is actually run in a hybrid fashion, and we welcome the people online as well. And also, you probably, I'm not sure if you can see it. I'll just show it to you. So we have a full-size audience in this room here today. My name is Professor Ryan Koh. I'm the Chair and Director of UQ Cyber. I'd like to thank all the distinguished guests for making time to attend our event today. Some of our keynote speakers just flew back from Europe, for example, and yeah, really appreciate that. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet on today and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge the hard work put in by the UQ Cyber team, Kana Smith, Dan Kim, Tiani, Vizcara, Shun Yao Wang, and Wenlu Zhang, and Grant Ferguson from advancement to help to pull this together, and also the Office of the Vice Chancellor for making this possible, and also many other colleagues as well who chipped in their own capacity. Thank you very much. For housekeeping, I just want to point out that the bathrooms are actually just right outside here. Turn left towards that corridor. In the event of an emergency or in the event of a fire alarm, there was one this morning, right? So we were we were thinking, oh no, we didn't have an incident response for this fire alarm, So that if it happens, please evacuate through the entrance, which is one level down, or if you walk straight out, that's the meeting point actually to the entrance at the other side. Today is a momentous occasion where we meet for a few milestones. Just a few moments ago, our Vice Chancellor, Professor Deborah Terry, and Rob Champion, Queensland Government Chief Information Security Officer, officially launched the UQ Cyber Labs, a comprehensive set of labs covering the strategic, operational, management, hardware and software aspects of cybersecurity learning and research. The second milestone we have today is in this conference, we'll be launching very shortly the Queensland Government Cybersecurity Scholarships for both our undergraduate and postgraduate programs. And of course, finally, over these 2 days, the reason why you are here is that we have this inaugural cybersecurity research conference featuring a high caliber lineup of keynote speakers and a platform, and it serves as a platform for researchers and industry to learn about each other's work and hopefully, organically and symbiotically bring together everyone. Without much further ado, and on this note, I would like to welcome Professor Deb Terry to the stage to give us her opening remarks. Professor Terry, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ryan. And can I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we're meeting here today. We honour their elders and their continuing cultural and spiritual connection to this land as we walk together on the path to reconciliation. I'd also like to acknowledge Mr. Rob Champion, Queensland Government Chief Information Security Officer, other distinguished guests, UQ colleagues, one and all. And really delighted to be able to welcome you all to the inaugural UQ Cyber Security Research Conference. Now, I think as many of you will know, and this quote is well known, but my favourite quote about the field of cybersecurity obviously comes from the late 1980s, when in fact I was still a university student at ANU, when the study of computer science was really still in its infancy. And the American computer science professor Gene Spafford from Purdue University famously said, and I quote, "The only truly secure system is one that is powered off, cast in a block of concrete and sealed in a lead-lined room with armed guards," and even then he had his doubts. So Professor Spafford obviously said this before most of the world went online. But of course, in the decades since, the world has become increasingly connected, and that has occurred very, very fast. And for most of us, the notion of disconnecting, let alone burying our computer in a block of concrete, just isn't a viable option. Nevertheless, I'm sure everyone here agrees wholeheartedly with Professor Spafford's fundamental point that there is always intrinsic and inherent risk associated with the digital storage and management of private data. The Australian community's awareness of these risks has undoubtedly been heightened in recent times due to the series of major corporate data breaches that have occurred over the past few years, in the past year in particular. And these have occurred across multiple sectors and have also obviously involved some of our university partners. But for those among you working on the front lines of cybersecurity, I'm sure that you all have a constant and pervasive awareness of that risk. And of course, the only feasible response that we have available to us is constant vigilance and trying to stay just one step ahead of what might be occurring. That means keeping up to date with the latest knowledge, the latest research, and the very, very best training. So that's why we established UQ Cyber in 2019, and our vision for this relatively new centre is that it will become the leading institute in the Asia-Pacific region for what we're calling elite cybersecurity, so really high-level cybersecurity research and education. Nearly all of the university's faculties and many of our schools chipped in to fund UQ Cyber, which really speaks to the multidisciplinary approach that we've adopted here at UQ in the areas of cyber research and training. A big advantage of having this research embedded at UQ is our ability to draw on expertise across the fields of technology, mathematics, physics, business, law, and the social and political sciences. We have more than 60 academics working on different aspects of cybersecurity, from policy design to criminology and from mathematics to quantum computing. That means that we do have powerful capabilities to help solve industry and government problems, and our goal is to work as a trusted and collaborative partner with our industry and government partners in helping to address these challenges. We see ourselves as being very much part of the solution and working with government and with industry to help deliver those solutions. In addition, UQ Cyber has developed and designed a suite of new postgraduate courses, including graduate certificate, graduate diploma, and Master of Cybersecurity. These programs are available for anyone from any discipline with a bachelor's degree. And we're also eager to bolster diversity in the field. And that's why I'm really delighted, and thank you, Rob, to hear about the new Queensland Government Cybersecurity Scholarships that are being launched here today by Rob from the Queensland Government. Now, Rob's going to go into some of the details shortly, but this is really an important step forward in terms of achieving greater diversity in our cyber security workforce by providing the support that we know is so essential to our students who face financial challenges in finishing their studies, particularly at the moment, obviously with all of the cost of living pressures that there are. We do absolutely recognise the importance of providing support to our students who just need that little bit of help to ensure that they can finish their studies. But it's absolutely critical, not only because there is a huge demand for well-trained people in this fast-growing industry, but also because, I mean, the way to grow the workforce is to attract students from more diverse backgrounds into the industry, and we need to do that. We're working very hard through what we call our Queensland commitment to really increase the number of students that this university attracts from regional and remote areas, from Indigenous backgrounds and from low SES backgrounds. If we can do that, we will be able to have the workforce in all of those areas where we know there are tremendous pressures. And in fact, as many of you will know, well, and certainly at UQ, many of our cyber students are actually offered jobs before they even finish their degrees. So just prior to coming here this morning, as Ryan said, Rob and I had the pleasure of formally opening the new UQ Cyber Labs, which are located just next door to this building. The cyber war rooms, the device testing lab, and the Agile Security Operations Centre are very, very impressive. And I must admit, I was impressed to see a Faraday cage in IT facility. I'm used to seeing those in psychology research labs, and amazing to see it now in our IT area. But they're very impressive, and I hope many of you will get a chance to see them if you haven't already seen them as part of this conference. I think it's yet another example of this university's commitment to solving major global challenges, and it really does speak to our overarching mission of delivering for the public good through excellence in our research, our education, and our partnerships with communities and others. In other words, our mission involves creating and sharing knowledge, and of course, that is the purpose of this conference. So I hope you all enjoy the next couple of days, and that the knowledge you gain from the conference can be applied to your work in this very important field. And on that note, I'd now like to introduce the Queensland Government's Chief Information Security Officer, Rob Champion, to say a few words. And I have already apologised to Rob. I'm sorry I can't stay here. I think we've got multiple openings this week, but it's been a pleasure to be here, Ryan. Congratulations to you and your colleagues. The work is really, really impressive, and it's in critically important work, and I hope the conference goes very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Terry. It is my great pleasure to be here today to talk to you and to announce cybersecurity scholarships for University of Queensland. Queensland Government really acknowledges, the amount of challenges that we have in the industry, really around the skills, access to skills, the quantum of those, the depth of those, but also the diversity of those skills. It is really important that we have not just a technical perspective to these skills, but also the business perspectives, the social perspectives that really integrate cybersecurity into every discipline. Many challenges for people entering and participating in the cybersecurity industry. Increasing diversity in the profession is really important. Diversity, not just of cultural background or of personal experience, but also of work experience, of the journey that people have come to. Cybersecurity isn't a pure discipline that sits within a really tight bound. It actually spreads horizontally right across all disciplines. Every discipline needs cybersecurity. Everything touches on information. And I really applaud UQ's work in this space. We have a number of challenges in cybersecurity at the moment, really around entry-level roles requiring 3 years experience is not a tenable way to go forward. We see very much and hear from students that are finding trouble getting into the industry. And yet, as employers, we're really seeking additional resources, and the rapid growth of the requirements is really important. We really got to look for transferable skills. Our cybersecurity workforce is not going to be completely filled by new graduates. We've also got to look at cross-skilling people into cybersecurity. So casting that really wide net is really important. We also need to make sure that we transfer all of those people who start on a cybersecurity workforce journey are actually able to succeed and get through that. So financial assistance, as the Vice-Chancellor said, is really important for continuation of those. We aim to incentivise, Queensland Government through these scholarships aim to incentivise underrepresented groups to get involved in cyber, but also the continuation of those that are already within the cybersecurity learning programs. A review of the enrolment data from the Master of Cybersecurity students at UQ indicated that there was only 1.15% First Nations, and there were no female First Nations participants between 2020 and 2022, and only just over a quarter of the participants were female. So there's a huge untapped opportunity here for us to open these courses and these careers to a broader range of people. So was there the slides? Where is it? No. Yep. So, yeah, so if you can run down to about slide 13, 14. Just flick on through those quickly. Yep. Okay, that one, thank you. So there's two scholarships that we're announcing today. A graduate scholarship, which is really around supporting students undertaking the graduate certificates, the continuation of their studies beyond their initial studies, really with a preference for female, Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander postgraduate students and those having financial hardship. Each of those are $10,000 and there's 5 of those. There's also undergraduate scholarships for people really in their current cybersecurity journey and getting through that financial assistance, financial incentive really to continue and finish their cybersecurity undergraduate degrees. Once again, $10,000 up to 5 awards. So applications are currently open for those and look forward to a broad range of applications for that. Open till the 20th of August and scholarships uq.edu.au, and really thank University of Queensland for the opportunity for us to sponsor the scholarships in this way to make sure that we're tapping those resources that we've got. So thank you very much. If you've got questions around those, I'm sure Professor Coe and others will be able to answer some of those, but I do think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah. We have a couple of minutes for questions. If there's anyone with questions for Rob.
Do you want me to get into the broader one or? Yeah.
I think everyone needs coffee. Yeah.
Yep.
How do you get the message out there?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a challenge. So the question was really around where do we get the applicants coming into cyber and how do we grow that pipeline? I think that's a really good question. We definitely need to work earlier and be more proactive in the way that we position careers in cybersecurity. One of the challenges for cybersecurity is that it's a niche of somewhat seen as being a technical domain. It doesn't attract a lot of people because they may self-select out of that, mostly because they don't know an awful lot about it. I think we can do an awful lot more to position really interesting, well-paid, exciting careers in cybersecurity. I think we have a real community of like-minded people in cybersecurity. It's one of the most collegiate professions that we have. I do think we need to open the door and open people's eyes to a broader range of opportunities in this space for kids getting involved. I think, you know, we've just seen some of the labs and the some of the micro cyber range elements, which that ability to have engaging ways to get kids involved in cybersecurity, preferably on the defending side. We've got enough people who can break things at the moment. We need more people who can defend them.
Thank you.
Yep, true talk. Yeah.
Okay.
That's another question. Okay, there's another question. Shunya.
Thank you for my explanation. I was just curious, what are the distribution channels that you have for the scholarship and to get students more excited about cybersecurity so to get more applicants?
So I think promotion amongst the existing student body is really important, that working with UQ, that ability to get that message out that it is there. I think scholarships are one of those things that we probably don't promote heavily enough. Definitely Queensland government's support for this is trying to build some awareness of that. And, you know, these are some of the few cybersecurity scholarships that are actually available within University of Queensland.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think, yep.
All right.
So that, so you're ready for your.
Yeah.
Yep. So that concludes our scholarship launch. Please tell your friends about it, tell your family about it, everyone, share on your LinkedIn or Twitter. We want to see people to come up. I can give you an example. I was on an Uber that day from the university back home. And then the person was saying he would love to do cybersecurity in this university. And I said, oh, I'm actually running that program. Do you know? And he works at Queensland Health. But he said, financially, it's very tough for him because he has a family with 2 kids or 3 kids. And I said, did you know that we have a Queensland government scholarship? So just, you never know. So yeah, I rely on all of you to spread the word. Yeah. And on this note, I want to also invite Rob again to give us his actual keynote speech. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
So thank you very much. We might just move on to the next slide. Can I advance those or no? Okay. Sorry. Thanks for coming. Okay, so we've been doing information security for decades. What's changed? Digitization has exploded, thanks to COVID and everything else, as you'd appreciate, but businesses are adopting cybersecurity in response to that digitization. The more we digitize our environments, the more we're going to need to apply cybersecurity over the top of that. Complexity is continuing to increase, both because of the amount of information we've got, the delivery mechanisms we're using, but also the new ways of working that we're using. The expectations of the communities and the stakeholders around their privacy, around security, continue to increase. And I think the profile of cybersecurity as a discipline is really being thrust into the public view on a pretty much a daily basis. And the sophistication, the motivation of our actors, our threat actors, are really continuing to enhance. They're finding new ways to industrialize their attacks. They're finding new avenues of threat to our systems, and they're finding new ways to monetize that as they go through. So cybersecurity is the fastest changing risk that enterprises have ever met. This change is not like anything that we've seen before. It's not like climate change. It's not like workplace health and safety. It's not like sort of changing business risk that we've had in the past. The major cybersecurity risks are faced by every organization, and pretty much every risk on an enterprise's risk register could come about due to a cyber incident. Somehow those risks, particularly reputational, financial, legal, operational, strategic, all of those risks can be triggered through a cybersecurity incident. And a major cyber incident will probably trigger multiple risks at the same time. These can be existential risks to organizations. So we're in this environment that continues to be as challenging as we've ever been. And that doesn't look to be abating anytime soon. The speed, scale, and impact of these changes are really being driven by a number of things. Rapid advances in technology. Obviously, AI, machine learning, fancy maths, whatever you want to call it, is really revolutionizing how things will happen going forward. But at the same time, we're accumulating legacy debt. We're accumulating technical debt for all of the old systems that haven't made those transitions. They may have been written 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Modern coding practices, modern approaches to cybersecurity haven't been applied to those. And those vulnerabilities that inherent in those systems, and we've seen a number of situations where that's occurring with large amounts of open source software and closed source software being found to be vulnerable for large periods of time, with new vulnerabilities being identified. The rate of which those vulnerabilities are occurring or being identified is actually increasing. We're seeing every year more and more vulnerability being disclosed, mostly in a responsible manner, but also in irresponsible manners where some of these 0 days are either being researched, being dumped onto the open market, but we're also then seeing when the vulnerabilities are being disclosed responsibly, the attackers are taking those and engineering or reverse engineering the actual vulnerability into a much more weaponizable format very, very quickly. It used to be months. It's now hours in some cases from the time it's published to the time it is weaponized. The time to exploit is really shortening, and that speed continues to increase. The scale, new delivery paradigms and new business models, everything is becoming online. Small business is adopting it, medium, large business adopting it. Personally, there's much more technology in our environments. The scale of technology continues to expand. That brings increasing attack surface. That attack surface is very much a challenge for those of us that are trying to defend the environments. Our users want to be innovative. They want to adopt new technologies. They want to find efficiencies and better customer service. But that scale and that attack surface is really becoming a challenge. The commoditization of the attacking mechanisms themselves, the scale of which the attackers work, continues to expand. What we're seeing is changes in the operating environment, particularly where as a service, ransomware as a service, denial of service as a service, those attacks and some of the attacks that we see on the Queensland Government Gateway, denial of service attacks against our state school infrastructure is actually the greatest of all, because the kids can buy it with their lunch money. They can discover it, they can buy it. It's a real challenge when we've got this industrialized or commoditized attack infrastructure that sits out there. The impact of the environment is continuing to change, and you'll obviously see a number of very high profile cybersecurity incidents occurring across Australia and across the world. Critical infrastructure increasingly is being targeted and being susceptible to cybersecurity risks. Data exfiltration, double extortion, triple extortion, new business models in that by our attackers are really looking to really leverage what you as an organization have against yourself to be able to actually extort as much as they can out of you. And a lot of that is reputational damage and even potentially second, third party impacts that flow on from that. And the cyber criminals and the nation states are really they're sharing techniques. It's very difficult these days. We've got nation states acting like cyber criminals. We've got cyber criminals using advanced mechanisms like nation states do. So those areas really create challenges as to not only to attribute to who it is, but also to defend against the attacks as it continues to ratchet up. But security is not binary. We can't afford to be perfectly secure. No organization, no individual can be perfectly secure. We heard about the block of concrete around the computer wrapped in in lead. I think from our point of view, we know that there is always a trade-off here. We've got to often users will avoid the security and go around the corporate security in particular, or the personal security, because it's convenient. That piece about how, as security professionals, do we build in usability to our security is really important. It's not just an ICT issue. It's actually really got to be understood that these are business issues, these are personal issues that all of us in our roles will have an understanding of, but it can't just be fixed by the IT areas. It will take all sorts of controls at our disposal, be that procurement and purchasing contracts and the obligations there. It'll potentially mean legislation and other components to formalise some of those arrangements and get their buy-in into it. AI and ML will both be, and automation will both be, a blessing and a curse in this space. They bring both risk and opportunity going forward. Everything will have AI going forward. The amount of smart devices we have at the moment, if we thought they were smart before, I think we're going to be in for a rude shock as things go forward with more and more automation, more and more inbuilt smarts. Some of the challenges that we have is really to understand the value and the susceptibility of our organizations, understanding the value of the data or of the thing or of the process that we're delivering. What's that worth to us? What's it worth to our stakeholders, our customers, our staff, our regulators? And then what's its value to the attacker? And I think it's not until you understand all three of those that you can actually understand exactly what you're protecting. There's some challenges in this space. The economic model is well and truly in the favor of the attacker at the moment. It's much more expensive as a defender to defend all of the systems and all of the attack surface that we have. So how do we change that economic model of cybercrime? Compliance-based approaches won't work. I think we're in the situation where compliance or regulation will be a blunt sword in this situation. We're really going to have to drive people's awareness, people's valuing their own security and the security of the stakeholders they represent. And we need to change the way people think about cybersecurity. There's a bunch of challenges that we face as an industry, both on the demand side and on the supply side. Primarily, a lot of these come about with complexity. So on the demand side, there's low buy-in. People are too busy to make it secure. Quite often, they're projects that deliver a lot of new systems are busy making it work and don't really spend the time on thinking about how it might fail. Not just failing during the project, but failing throughout its whole life cycle and what the impacts of that failure might look like. We also have some challenges in low literacy in the business, low literacy within the community about what is cybersecurity. That impost, both the knowledge piece of people understanding exactly what are they protecting, but also how do they go about protecting that. Somebody's calling in. There's some perception biases that we have to work around. I think that challenge with it, we don't understand exactly how at risk we are because we may not see all of the bad things that are happening around us. Quite often, blaming the victim has meant some of these are being held, the reputational damage and the impacts to reputation mean that people suppress and don't share that threat intelligence across multiple organisations, which allows others to then protect themselves. We've got complexity barriers, we've got cost impediments, and we've got time impediments on the demand side. So from the point of view of who's growing their cybersecurity and the capability to and the need for it, there's a few challenges there. On the supply side and on the side of those that are defending, access to skills, as we talked about this morning, already is a challenge. Technical debt, I've mentioned before, trying to deal with multiple layers of information, of technology and of software that may go back decades or have its foundations in the past. Not everyone is on a shiny new system. There's large amounts of some of our systems that are done on quite old and creaky environments. I think one of the other big areas on the supply side of cybersecurity is lack of visibility. We don't have entire visibility of our environments. Some of them weren't instrumented. Some of them we haven't got around to instrumenting. Some of them we don't know how to really have an understanding of that. Right back at the supply chain side of things, software, bills of materials and other components are concepts that are only just being really widely adopted now. That understanding that what goes in to make your application, how many different bits of open source or closed source software go up to make that enterprise system. Is that API equivalently, is it properly secured? Is it exposed, authenticated and logged to the right level? In a lot of cases, people aren't really risk adverse, they're work adverse. They're too busy to layer an additional thing on top of the cybersecurity roles that they already have today. So they're challenged really to do more with the same. We're not seeing although there's a huge amount of demand, we're not seeing huge growth in the teams that are doing it. So we've got to find smarter and more effective ways of doing things. A couple of trends that I was just going to touch on was really around increasing regulation. We're hearing a lot about particularly privacy and the expectations as individuals. GDPR and other regulatory frameworks are being looked at right across the globe. It's probably not that far down the track and we will see something similar in Australia, really around that requirement to have privacy built into the systems and the organisations that we operate. The regulation and the responsibilities will continue to grow, I think, as we see market failure in protecting systems. We've already seen changes to the privacy legislation because of the Optus and Medibank issues. So I think that will continue. I think the AI challenge will also be quite systemic throughout. There'll be areas where AI gets pushed into our organizations, into our systems and into our lives that we haven't predicted yet. Quite often, I think we will struggle to understand how we protect those over time. The functionality and the adoption of AI quite often will precede our ability to defend it. There will be new and novel attacks come out around AI. I think acceptable risk will be a challenge in this space. These are unforeseen risks that we don't really know about yet. There'll be new attacks that we haven't even conceptualized yet, but somebody will be scheming for that because there will be probably significant incentives to attack these systems, but also to manipulate the AI itself for their own benefit. And skills will continue to be an issue. Security teams will really be challenged, I think, around understanding where they are today, where their blind spots are, where their controls or features that we have built into the security hasn't been turned on. And we don't know what we don't know. I think there'll be numerous waves of new attack models, new threats that we haven't perceived. And we just don't know what's coming next. What we do know, however, is that a move from compliance mindset has to be adopted. We've got to move to a risk management mindset. Compliance by itself will not be enough. Having the checklist of saying, this is, if I do this, this and this, I'm secure. Won't be the case. So we need to be much better at risk management. So the challenges is really understanding what we're trying to protect. What are we protecting it from? What are those future risks? What are the consequences? What happens if we fail to protect this information? And what are we prepared to invest? Because it isn't unlimited amounts of money, unlimited resources that we can invest in cybersecurity, which leads us to the question of how much is enough cybersecurity? Regulation will quite often drive us to the minimum viable amount of cybersecurity or minimum expected. But for most organisations, that will never be sufficient to avoid the risks totally. So can we ever be secure? I think from our point of view, the answer is going to be no. How do we be more secure is the question. People, process and technology. The technology is where cybersecurity has focused in the past, particularly around the hardware, the software. But the people and process sides of cybersecurity is actually some of the more difficult areas. Human behaviour is definitely an area of where we need to research and we need to enhance our understanding about how humans behave and that interface between people and systems. We need to make sure that we're aiming for resilience and that we're automating and self-healing our systems. We need to architect trust into our systems. So how do we know? How do we trust? Trust is a really interesting concept, and it's a very human concept in the scheme of things. The human factors really are probably some of the emerging areas where the greatest probably enhancements can be made. We also have to prevent, detect and respond to cybersecurity. We will fail in a number of situations. We won't always prevent a cybersecurity incident. So detecting that when it occurs and responding to it is really important. SOCs are now part of our language. We're seeing multiple organisations and we've just toured a really great looking SOC, but the people and process is the bit that actually makes the SOC work. I think from our point of view, the challenge, you can build the technology, you can build the systems and the physical place, but the people and the process is one of the key challenges. SOCs will be dealing with more and more volume of events. So we'll see them having to scale and we'll have continued challenges around the scalability of what they can see. We're looking for needles in haystacks and now it's in fields of haystacks and it'll be in, continents of haystacks. I think the amount of data we're dealing with, people aren't necessarily good at that, but machines are. So utilising the technology to actually make that effective will really be an opportunity of AI going forward. The role of identity will also be key going forward for our SOCs. How do our SOCs understand identity and trustability of the systems, of the behaviours, and of the requirements that they're protecting? Privacy preserving is probably a challenge. How do our SOCs and security processes really preserve the privacy and increase the visibility? That will be definitely a concern that when who's watching the watchers is a consideration. It can't be total surveillance, but we also in the same breath need to preserve privacy. Responding is really important. Cyber incident management plans, incident response plans. Queensland Government has just issued and recognised under the State Disaster Management Plan, a cyber hazard specific plan. What that really does is bring cyber security as a state-based hazard, the coordination, how that looks. Quite different to natural disasters. Is going to be much more towards the way the pandemic in a sort of top-down approach, sharing information, coordinating resources, coordinating awareness and response. And at the national level, we have cyber incident management arrangements for Australian governments, which really lays out how the states and territories and the federal government work together. But at an organisational level, each organisation has to have a plan. They really need to test that plan, and how we test plans is really important. And in some cases, the human factor of that is getting people to suspend disbelief when the scenario seems absurd. That's quite often when some of those expectations are really challenged. I think what we're going to see going forward is continued discussion around the pipeline of skills, that challenge that we talked about earlier, diversity of experience, bringing people into cybersecurity that have experience in other places, in other disciplines, other professions, other life experiences, other cultural backgrounds. I think really important that we can do that. We touched on the scholarships as a way of doing that previously, which is good. And I would leave you with the challenge that I think cybersecurity is going to be a challenge for most organisations, individuals, and our way of life for some time. We're going to have to find new and novel ways of responding to the threats that we face. We've also got to find new and novel ways of architecting trust, identity, and the systems that we use to maintain the quality of life, but also the things that we keep precious to ourselves. So thank you very much. Open the floor to thank you. Open the floor to any questions that people may have. How are we going for time?
So we'll take 2 questions, and after that we'll break for morning tea until 10:30. Yep, 10:30.
Maybe I'll kick that off. Thanks, Rob. Great presentation. Really appreciate the focus on building capabilities. You also briefly mentioned the idea of being good leaders to kind of create those capabilities. I was actually interested in having your opinion. Is there something different about leadership in cybersecurity than in other disciplines, in other fields, in other areas? Based on your experience, is this something that you can pinpoint and give us a bit of insights in that? Thanks.
I think, thanks, Ivano, for the question. One of the things that I think for cybersecurity, quite often positions like a CISO, you don't have a lot of direct power to the organisation. You have potentially an opportunity to influence, but responsibility for the security actually sits in another area. Unlike a chief financial officer or a chief HR officer, quite often we don't have all-powerful policy or all-powerful visibility around the organisations. And I don't know that you want it in a lot of cases. I think if we disempower the business from their cybersecurity and their responsibility, because it's actually about continuing the business outcome. So we need to, as cybersecurity leaders, work with the business for their benefit, not for our power trip or from the point of view of saying, you've got to follow our rules. Because as I said, people will go around them if not convenient. That convenience could be, scrutiny, but it could also be, spending. It could be whatever's not convenient to the business will really drive them underground, or, particularly what we're seeing, grey IT. The controls we had in the past used to be in the IT areas. Now with cloud delivery of things, most of the business units can go and choose to buy a cloud service as a service. That really opens up the business as far as adopting new and innovative ways of doing things. So we've got to be there with them, guiding them, not necessarily policing them. Down there.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for your presentation. Just a question. You're mentioning with in passing with third parties and with contractors. So how do you ensure that you protect your own company from the vulnerabilities of a third party without necessarily sort of pushing or enforcing your own cybersecurity policies on your third party?
Look, that's a really good question, because I think we will struggle. We're already struggling in that situation as industry to understand exactly how much is enough security, how far do you push that down the supply chain. We're seeing a number of big incidents where the vector into, or the consequences to an organization came in through either a subcontractor or through an outsourced arrangement. You can outsource the responsibility to deliver something, but not the accountability for the impact. So very much, it will be I don't think checklists here are going to be enough. I think it's partnerships. It's how do we have clear responsibilities within contracts and within assessment frameworks, but also how do we have a shared view of what we're trying to protect and have skin in the game for both the supplier and the consumer. It will be challenging, and I think some of the things we've done in the past are actually problematic particularly for small businesses. The impost becomes very high. So how do we increase their literacy, increase their understanding of it? But no, not an easy area to fix.
Oh, final question. Yes, David.
Thank you, Rob. So I appreciate you don't represent Queensland government in terms of legislation and everything, but you know, and you're impacted by it. But as we see the growing regulation, legislation that's happening, you know, how do you see the sort of that play between federal and state? Because I suppose how do you see it, and B, how does that affect you?
Yep. I think what we're going to see is most regulation will come out of the federal sphere. I think as a nation, consistency is really important in the way we do things. So if each state and territory were to stand up individual sets of regulation around this, we're seeing it already emerging in the critical infrastructure space. National privacy legislation is the predominant privacy construct in Australia as well. So from our point of view, we are a consumer or a recipient of that regulation, and we too have to meet those requirements. I think the challenge here is to make sure that we're actively participating in the design of those regulatory pieces. Things like the SOCI Act, Security of Critical Infrastructure, really important because they are the most critical parts. By definition, critical infrastructure is critical. Government has a fairly large piece in managing the consequences of critical infrastructure having failures, but increasingly we've seen things like Optus and Medibank have really significant flow-on effects to the community and to government. We've reissued driver's license numbers for probably 200,000 people that were impacted out of the Optus incident, because that trust is really important. So government plays a role in establishing trust and maintaining trust, but regulation and being at the table for the conversation is really important.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you very much. So we'll now break for morning tea. When we come back, Associate Professor Dan Kim will introduce Dr. David Stockdale for his keynote. Yeah, so see you at 10:30. Thank you.
That's great. Yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah, great. The weather was. Yes, yes. Good. You changed all the I reckon. I understand that. Yeah, I hope we do. Looking versions of research government. When I say He's running a deep government project about AI. I'm the director and chair.
Oh, together with you. Oh, you want to do this?
He has the running center has how many seconds? 12. I gave a talk.
Oh, okay.
Online.
Online,
Yeah. And I know he was also president of Korea. And he went to Melbourne for
Oh, yes.
and then I invited him to come.
Yeah.
To attend one.
Good. Yeah, a few of him is there, but I was too tied down with the
I know.
Yeah.
Same for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So welcome. Yeah. Hope you are enjoying the Brisbane UQ as well. Is this your first time? Yeah. Hopefully not the last. Don't come back again. Yeah. We host a lot of visitors. Yeah, we have about 60 something researchers across the whole university. So this is economics, business, leadership, yeah, and on top of science, computer science. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're in good hands. I'll tell you. Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah.
We don't see a lot of breaks on islands. Doesn't mean they're not happening, they're just. Manufacturing business. Catholics and practices. I never think about this.
I provide service. So yeah, and what my suggestion is insurance from it's in the insurance companies. So which area are you fitting? Yeah,
That should be the first slide.
Yeah.
There we are.
So this one, yeah.
So at the moment,
Okay.
everything you say,
So Andy, my CSRC over is presenting to the.
thank you very much. Just a bit, no, yeah, could we just, yeah, that one's the first slide.
So you have David Stockdale.
Yeah,
and then after
I'll
that-
just make sure it's on. Yeah, good, thank you.
So the strategy piece. What I know there is a cyber strategy, I think is far as cyber strategy. Yes, but I think. Actually is much more significant. We're gonna be on time sometimes. It's really that opportunity. If we're gonna Jason, out of the state of territory, leasing. Understand, but exposure, why are we? 30% of the reports. So I'd love my conversation. Now next one is no.
Yeah, so then that's going to, yeah, I think we'll have to-
Yep.
There's no perfect architecture.
Sorry, it's possible. Is she a district office? District?
No, she's here. She's here.
All right.
She's with the arts team.
She's never had it.
The particular number she had, 146. No, she hasn't. The problem is that like when I go about her mind, all I see is like
No, but it's more than likely hasn't been done. Oh, so the first thing I'll do, I'll just check in my collab.
I was wondering like what like it was.
Oh, she doesn't ring a bell, so. Oh no, she's 146.
Yeah, I mean the extension's there, but the problem is that the software.
Oh, has she got a phone?
No, she's got a headset.
All right, so we can just go deploy my collab client. Before I do that, I'll just. All right, so she's an AD. She'll be in there. Let's have a quick squeeze. So on this menu, there's an extra. You can see if they've been deployed. So before I click on the deployed
this conference program to you today. So when I first think about this conference last year, so we thought about the multiple purpose conference. First, we want to promote our research to the external parties, including industry, funding agency, and other discipline and other school and faculties. Then this could help us to collaborate with other industry partners and other school and other disciplines. And also, there are a lot of talks from our own PhD students, and we can get some feedback from industry, other school, and other faculties, and so on. And this will also give us a networking opportunity. On each day, we have a networking opportunity, so that networking and the showcasing will be held in 313A room. So if you come to this building, the very first room on the right side, from my right side, there will be networking opportunity. And you can download all the program using your camera and PDF file for the talk and speaker information, and also all the abstract and so on. And we have 3 keynote speeches this conference, and Rob gave an excellent talk in the morning, and we have 2 more keynote speeches. Dr. David Stockdale will give a talk right after my introduction. And then in the afternoon, Dr. Nick Tate will be giving a talk. And we have a lot of talk. So we have 12 talks from our own PhD students. Topics are diverse. 3 talks on IoT and CPS security, cyber physical system security, and 3 talks on AI security and security for AI, and 2 talks on software and system security, and 2 talks on incident response and governance talk. And also we have 9 talks who received UQ Cyber Seed funding over the last 2 to 3 years. And it's more about interdisciplinary research topics. I hope you can enjoy that. And at this guideline for the talk, for the 30 minutes talk, you have a 25 minutes talk and the 5 minutes Q&A. And then for the 20 minutes talk, you have a 15 minutes and the 5 minutes Q&A is followed by. And the morning after the keynote 2, we'll have first session, which is about top conference paper session. So we'd like to promote the students to publish their paper in a top tier conference, Core A or A star, which gives our higher reputation in the cybersecurity community. So we have 2 students who are going to give a talk. First talk was presented at the IEEE ICSI conference. This is a top tier software engineering conference. And the second one is ASIA CCS. It's a Core A conference, and this is also a top conference in Asia Pacific region. And hopefully that everyone can publish at least 1 paper next year, or this year and next year. Then we don't have to have the separate session, and all the papers will be published, right? And then presented at this conference next year. And there will be optional tour at 12:30. We depart at the registration desk outside. Then it will be about for 30 minutes tour. So you'll see the Defense Science Technology Group and Device Testing Lab and Agile Security Open Center and the cyber rooms. And in this afternoon, we have this talk. And on the tomorrow morning, we have this talks and 6 talks. And afternoon, we have other talks. All the programs are available online. And the networking opportunity is 49313A building rooms in this building. Okay, that's it. Now I'd like to introduce our second keynote speakers. Dr. What is that? Yeah, here, there, yeah. Dr. David Stockdale. Yeah, He's a Deputy Director of IT Service and also Director of OCERT.
Thank you.
Yeah, please welcome.
That's the slides for you.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me along. I was just reflecting early on when I went around the tour that I first met Ryan in 2018 when I was dragged down to the down out of ITS, because we don't like to leave the central services very often, some of us, and we were dragged down, and I had the opportunity to meet Ryan and another person who was in for the role. I was very fortunate that Ryan and I did connect very quickly. I loved the stuff that he was proposing. And this is what we see. So from 2017, 2018, 2019 to what we see in 2023 is absolutely phenomenal. And it's a great pleasure to actually be able to stand here and talk about some of the things that we do. Now, my role at the University of Queensland is essentially twofold. I am the Chief Information Security Officer for UQ these days. But more, I was going to say more importantly, actually, probably if we don't broadcast this too far, it probably is more important because I have an absolute love of AusCert. And AusCert is an organization. Let me see if I can just get the slides to work. Oh, we're going to stuck on this one. I'm going to have to depend on memory, which is never very good. Okay, thank you. That's right. But actually, before we get started, which I think is very important for us and for AusCert especially, is that I'd like to also acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today, and pay my respect to the traditional owners and the custodianship that they hold. We pay our respects to their ancestors and the descendants, and all who do continue cultural and spiritual connections to country. And that is really important for us at AusCert, because that's something we've worked very hard with a number of different groups with. So AusCert, what about it? As I say, I'm passionate about it. And it's 30 years. That's a little sticker that sat on my laptop, and that's the only one I had to take a scan of. But it's 30 years old today. And what does AusCert actually stand for? It stands for Australian Computer Emergency Response Team originally, but it's now probably known as Cyber Emergency Response Team. So in 1992, NASA was hacked and the Courier Mail reported. The FBI, chasing a group of Brisbane computer hackers who broke it into NASA's computer system. US authorities have traced the hackers back to Queensland University of Technology, very to be noted, but the hackers were also working through institutions, including the University of Queensland. A QUT spokesman, who did not want to be named, confirmed that the hackers, believed to be students, had accessed the NASA system and other sensitive United States government agencies. So that's where AusCert really emerged from. The University of Queensland, QUT and Griffith got together. They tried to get government funding, which was refused. I think that's quite a common theme. But they still got on with the job, and they created what was CERT, so really Security Emergency Response Team. But this little note that John Node, who was then director of QUT, it notes that it probably cost between $200,000 and $300,000 in staff time chasing that hack and plugging the holes. I think that's really important, that this is 30 years ago, that's what it cost. And then, of course, our unfortunate event at the beginning of the year where QUT were also badly affected by a breach themselves. So we can see the impact of the cost, but this is why AusCert started. So really, what was its purpose? It started off, and it started really building up a relationship with Carnegie Mellon University, which is the first cert in the world. AusCert was the second, possibly it could be the third, but possibly probably the second. And its purpose really in those days was to be a security emergency response team, trusted center of security expertise. Again, that's something we're seeing emerging with UQ Cyber. It would analyze security incidents. Again, if you went around the lab and you see some of the work that they're doing, it's very similar. And its response, and it would respond to security incidents, help people recommend defenses. But it was also disseminate security information. and education and security tools. Now, Alan was the director who preceded Nick, I think. I don't know if there's anybody between Alan and Nick's in the audience, which was our previous directors at ITS. Alan was the director, I think, directly before Nick. And this is a presentation that he gave. And then it transformed into being OzCert around 1994. I'm sure Nick's going to actually correct me on a few of the finer details at some stage. But what's its purpose today? And the reason I'm talking about this is because OzCert is really playing a part with UQ Cyber. And I think it's really important that you understand what we do and then how we can work together. So it's timely, impartial incident response, so very similar to before, security advice, threat intelligence and analysis. And probably in that one statement is the majority of what we do and what we're about. But we also do, many of you have been to, we do deliver a world-class information security conference on the Gold Coast every year. But we also really pride ourselves in employing and developing talent and passionate professionals, and also be the place that they want to work. Now, we're very fortunate. OzCert is about 22 staff at the moment, and we're for the first time we're probably fully staffed. We've got one job advert at the moment. If any young students would like to be looking at that, we would. But we're very passionate about that. And as I say, the OzCert is the thing I love, is because that's what we all feel. And at our 30-year birthday party, we had many, many people come back who worked in OzCert many years ago, and really tell us that they would never come back to any other employer, but they wanted to come back to OzCert to actually celebrate with us. So we're really keen to create that environment, and we promote it heavily. But one of our other purposes is really to engage with the global CERT community. And we're a big player in the Asia Pacific CERT area. So we do a lot of work that, but we also do it on a global basis. And that really enables us to carry out some of the work that we do because of those global connections. But I think also lift the cybersecurity knowledge and capabilities within the Australian economy. Now, I think that's in the economy, so we talk about businesses, but realistically, I think we're talking about lifting that knowledge and capability everywhere we can. So, and I'm going to, if you can indulge me a little bit, I'm going to go through the types of services that we do. And again, the reason for that is so that you can understand us, because if you understand us, then hopefully we can work together much better. So we've been recently putting our work, essentially our services into four main pillars, but that threat intelligence and vulnerability management one. So we have a lot of members, a lot of organizations that subscribe to our services. And for those organizations that we have, we provide them information, security incident notifications. So we know about their environment. So if we were to take business A, we'd know what their address ranges are, we know what the domains are, and then we can start to look for events that are happening. So we notify our members. So we're essentially acting as part of their security service. When there's any major sensitive breaches, we also notify them. So when we see the large credential dumps that happen, we process them on behalf of all our members, and we let them know of where there are new incidents, where there's new credential data that's been released, so that they can plug the holes very quickly. We also provide, it's one of our most popular services, and it seems like we often wonder why, we provide security bulletins. So it's one of the areas we started off in. So we tell people when vulnerabilities to certain systems are coming out, and just help them really manage their internal vulnerabilities, which is one of the vectors of attack. We also have a really great malicious URL feed. So we see many, many phishing sites that get stood up. We do a lot of work about removing those phishing sites. And we take that intelligence, and then we feed it back into this malicious URL feed, which can be automated into organizations' infrastructure, into their technology to block. We probably do the majority of the malicious, the phishing takedowns for one of the largest government agencies in this country. So we're trusted at the federal level as well. And we also do, we have things like a SMS early warning. So when there's something that's extremely critical. But more recently, because of us working across many sectors, and I'll show you what those sectors are soon, we've started to talk about how do we share our threat intelligence. And we're using the platform MISP, which is an open source platform. It came out of the Luxembourg CERT, where it was first developed. We're using this platform and we're running it to put threat intelligence in. It is bi-directional, so our members can connect to that and they can feed information into it and they can extract information out of it. But what we've been really excited about last year was to then connect it to the federal government's feed, which is called CSRC, which is the Cyber Threat Intelligence Service. And now what we're seeing is our direct connection from the government, from the federal government, through into this instance. At the moment, we're just propagating that out to our higher education partners, so all the universities in Australia. But that is something that we're building on, and it's fairly new, and which is the reason we don't have an icon for it. So we also do provide a 24/7 hotline. So people can just phone up, our members can just phone up and ask us if they've got problems. We're not there as a big provider of incident response. We're not going to parachute a bunch of people into an organization somewhere in Australia. We're not that type of organization. There's some really big players in that space these days, and they do it very, very well. But we are there to actually be a second opinion. Just to give some guidance. There's many incidents that happen that they don't need a big threat, a big incident response team dropping in at which has obviously a large cost to it. And then I've just mentioned the phishing takedowns that we do, which is, as I say, one of the services we provide to one of the biggest federal agencies. And then most importantly, and then this is alignment, obviously CSRC is part of the University of Queensland, but this is one thing that we've just introduced again in the last probably 4 or 5 years. And it's our education program. So unlike what we're doing at UQ in terms of talking about the education program with the master's degree and the other parts of that, what we're and really acting sort of that's aimed at the elite in cyber. What we're doing is helping organizations just lift their cybersecurity knowledge within their workforce. So these are very short courses. We do deliver them with some staff who have been joined with UQ Cyber and CSRC. And you can see the sorts of the types of courses that we're doing, and these have gone down very well. So again, it's in that theme of we are at the end of the day, we are an education organization. And we also have a couple of other things that we do, including podcasts. We do a daily review of what's been happening in cyber, and we have a Slack channel which is very, very well subscribed, and a lot of information is shared over. So that's CSRC. That's what we do. 30 years old, doing a lot of services that are very much valued by the organizations that subscribe to us. We have around just under 700 organizations in Australia that subscribe to our services, pay us money to provide services. And that's really important. I've actually got a slide about it later, but 700 opportunities sometimes to work with other people other than just the people that you in your local context. But really for what are our challenges? Because really part of this is about building up a relationship where you can help also with challenges. When I say also, we are UQ, we are part of UQ Cyber as well. So it's about how do you help with these challenges? But these are the ones that we say on a day-to-day basis. It is, and Rob Champion did say about how it's evolving. We all know how this area of cybersecurity is evolving, how the threats are emerging far too rapidly. But we do find it quite difficult just being able to change, to stay relevant in this rapidly changing environment. We are only 20-something people. We are fairly agile, but even when you're quite small, just keeping up with that and changing takes a lot of doing. We're also competing in a global market. And quite often, because we're only a small organization, People will just think that you're not relevant because you're small, irrespective of how good you are. And that is a challenge, especially when you've got, and no offense to our friends who are vendors in the room, I can see what one, but because we work very closely with them. But you know, the vendors in this space are very good at the marketing piece, and they're good at selling. So when we're trying to say, okay, we could provide this sort of service, you know, there's a big push by the big vendors in that, and so it should be. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot to go around. So we can be seen as irrelevant, and that's something we have to fight all the time, even though we're a $4 million turnover organization. And we're not willing to use that sort of hype marketing. Not saying all of them do. I think our friends at Parlo don't. So picking on Stuart here because he's in the room. But no, we do partner with some organizations because they're very good. But there's still a lot of organizations that do use that hype marketing. And this piece of technology will solve all of your problems. And again, talking with what Rob said earlier about people, processes, and technology, you know, and I do keep on saying it. People who've seen me speak before will hear me say people, processes, and technology. Even though I'm an infrastructure person, it's not about the technology. So, and then our final challenge, and I put this one in hoping that Flano or Debbie would stay in the room, but they're not. But operating in a constrained environment of a cost center of ITS is a challenge. We're a small business essentially, and we're trying to operate within the cost center. And I know, talking to Michael as head of school at ITEE, I know that even the schools have these challenges. There's something about the central service that is a challenge to us, but we take it on the chin and get on with it. So this is what our cert's been like over the last few years. I say we're just under about 700 members. So we're significant. We have a lot of connections. We have a lot of connections with businesses. They vary from, well, all sorts of businesses. Maybe I'll just give you a bit of an idea. This is, I hope that won't show up very well. My pointer showing up on there. The largest peak here is in the education and training sector. So we're big in that sector. We're big in finance, insurance. We're big in healthcare. But we spread across all of these standard industry types along the bottom. So we have one or two members or more in nearly every sector. A lot of those people buy our services, and that's the end of it. They just buy it. They don't interact with us in any other way. But some of those do. Some of those are keen to partner. Some of those are keen to develop. Some of those want to have more involvement. And that's something that we've been working on quite a lot recently. So, as I say, 2018, I think it was, met Ryan. Ryan shared vision. And it is Ryan's shared vision. And I know he's a very humble person, but credit to him, Michael, who was sort of there and employed Ryan, which was fantastic. But what was that vision? For me, what sold it to me was it was the OzCert could be that part of that connection with UQ Cyber's connection into industry. I know there's lots of connections with industry that Ryan and the team have built, but really we have this opportunity to with OzCert to have even more so. It was also an opportunity for OzCert members, those businesses, to bring some of their problems in as research ideas or research as challenges. And then, of course, OzCert feeding into the master's program. So essentially, with OzCert and through OzCert was that vision. And that was something that I'd never seen before, something that was extremely exciting to be part of. And it's turned out to be true. It's turned out to be that excitement is manifested. It's manifested today in this event, and it's fantastic to see when we can get the Vice Chancellor, the Provost, the COO, and others to come along and actually be part of the opening ceremony. So how can OzCert and UQ Cyber really continue collaborating? Well, it can do this in this sort of two-way collaboration. UQ Cyber people and OzCert people talking more, talking about problems, talking about solutions, talking about things they want to work together with. And then there's this second way, which is that three-way collaboration, where talking to our membership, talking to various of the organizations that we work with us, and having that sort of three-way collaboration to achieve the same things. So very much in line with what the original vision was. But where have we been successful so far? So we're talking about being about nearly 4 or 5 years in, I suppose. We've gone through COVID. There's been other challenges, but there's been some great collaboration, and there's been some great success. So we started off with the capstone projects. I know this is really is focused around research, but there is a very much a grey area as you get into that area for the higher ends of teaching and into the research. So we've had success with the capstone projects. So we've been running this. We've been running a few of those in conjunction with UQ Cyber, and we've got a couple of ones I've just mentioned here, which have been rather exciting to be working on, especially the cert stream one. It's also good to actually get young students who are research aware, who come as team members into our organization, because they bring a different skill set as well. But then there's things like the writing and publishing together. So I know Ivano, working with a couple of the team, Shelley is sort of part-time, has been part-time with us, and Ella, who's in the other team, the other cyber team, have been working on some work, doing some work in women in cyber. So these types of collaborations are some of our successes. But really, what are the challenges? It's early days. Again, I was reflecting on the fact that, 3 or 4 years or 5 years has taken to build the momentum to where this is today. And it does take time. And I think when we started off, there was an expectation by myself that this would happen tomorrow. This would happen, in the first year. And it doesn't. It takes a few years to actually to build that momentum up. But it takes our teams to understand what they need to do, what they need to do in terms of building briefs for projects, enough detail to work with students. Working with students is a different concept for people who are in professional services. They might have been a student once, but they probably can't remember it for good reasons. But they certainly don't have any other other work. They don't work with students on a regular basis. There's quite a lot of work to do if you've got a capstone project and you then want to turn that into a service. So it can be a great idea. It can be a successful project. It can have some promising outcomes, but turning that from what it is into something that OzCert could then, and UQ could build into a service that we could deliver is a big challenge. And, if any of you do work in that translational research area, then you will know what those challenges are. And that's something the university obviously is developing more skills in, but we're doing it in a very small way in that sense. But also one of the challenges is building knowledge of each other. I doubt if many people who are in my team would know many people who are in the room, and vice versa, that many of the people in this room would not know who was in the OzCert team. Or in fact, also in the UQ, in the central UQ cyber service. It's very confusing because we've got UQ cyber, which is obviously the research aspect. I've got the team that actually look after cybersecurity for the University of Queensland, and then I've got OzCert. So, but I'm saying I think there's not an awful lot of cross-pollination at the moment, and I think we need to build that up more. So what about other types of collaboration? This sort of collaboration through OzCert as opposed to just between OzCert and UQ Cyber. Well, we've worked on some research projects together. There's a couple of projects that are working, mainly in the GRC space, with Sergey and Michael Axis and Ivano again. And also then cyber risky suppliers, so something to do with supply chain. So what's been the challenges with there? Well, I think, again, the expectation was from ourselves, from researchers, that OzCert has nearly 700 members. You'll be able to just pick up the phone, talk to half a dozen, and they'll just come running along to do some research with us at UQ. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. I thought it would, but then I'm very naive. So I was hoping it would, because I thought that's a perfectly great thing to do. But the reality is that businesses are very busy. They need to see what the benefits are. They need to understand what the commitment is. And then they also, being in cybersecurity, they're quite often frightened about sharing any of their information about from an organization perspective. They're not really sure whether they should tell us any data or not. And that is a challenge in itself, specifically. around that. So these challenges of working through AusCert, so that with our members, UQ Cyber, AusCert, and the membership is challenging. But I've sort of painted a bit of a bleak picture. It's not. And this is the best one. And this is the collaboration alongside AusCert. And what I mean is that about building a partnership. Now, Ivano Bongiovanni, who is part of UQ Cyber, part of the business school, came forward with a concept of something he'd actually worked on in Italy, and in his days in Italy, and about a forum for cyber leaders. And this has just hit the mark last week. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. I was sick. Where we're getting groups of people from outside, from businesses, together with UQ Cyber, with AusCert, and looking at working on problems and potential solutions. Now, why is this different? Why is this the success? What I think will be the great success. It's because it's partnership. It's about each of the parties understanding each other. It's about building a trusted relationship. And it's about not just being a supplier-consumer relationship, and it's about delivering value to every party. So UQ Cyber can get benefit from it, AusCert can get benefit from it, and the individuals who are taking part are getting benefit from it. And I think this is the mechanism for which we are going to have success in the future if we start to work in this collaborative manner. And I think that speaks to that momentum. It's about building momentum, and it's about learning. And I think we've got to a tipping point where we can actually have great success. So the challenge from me, or from AusCert, to you, is to get to know us. And I've just put a few of the key people there from AusCert. Mike is in the audience. Mike is our senior manager. He's the one who does know it. He's the one who does it. He is a GRC expert, and I'm saying that because I'm actually becoming a bit of a fanboy of GRC. Is Daniel in the room? Still in the room? I don't know if he is, but I'm actually becoming a bit of a no, not other Daniel from Deloitte. Okay, so I am becoming a GRC specialist, and the successes actually we've had with projects have been around the GRC space, not necessarily so much the technology space. But I'm saying get to know us, and that's important. Understand what our members need help with, and that's where we can help you. And we've got some work to do in that space as well. We're doing that at the moment. We're actually traveling the country and finding out what they need, and from us, and then we can also bring that into the conversation. But we need you to develop new techniques and help build new tools. And that can be through capstones, or it can be through capstone projects at the master's level. It can be at the PhD level. We don't mind. It's how do we help build these, and then how do we take these projects and build them into services for AusCert/UQ Cyber. We want to develop new techniques to manage cyber risk. Rob Champion did mention it very well. We're never going to be secure. We have to be realistic about that. It is about managing risk. And that's where we need to spend a lot of time. We also do need to improve our cyber threat intelligence. So we do some great work with the government, with the federal government, which is fantastic. But we need bright minds on this. And we also want to really think about developing that UQ Cyber AusCert group for detecting and publishing vulnerabilities, because I think that will be something that will be quite exciting to do. And it's really along that key, that quote I put at the end. We're about keeping you real, as in what's needed, and you're about keeping us smart, because you've got some fantastic minds who are coming into UQ Cyber to deliver. Thank you. Brian.
Yeah, thank you very much for the excellent talk. Due to the time limit, we're gonna have only one burning question. Any question? Only one. Yeah, yes. Paul.
It's a good question. Thank you. Great talk, David. On that one, I was wondering, you mentioned a lot don't partner, they'll just sign up for the service, possibly a two-parter. which vertical do you see as the most mature in cyber? And is that correlated directly to those that wish to partner more with AusCert and user services? So is it the ones that talk to you to the most, are they always the most mature?
Okay, so the sector we see as the most mature is probably in terms of collaboration is without doubt higher education. I think it's inherent in higher education in Australian universities. So we work closely with nearly every university, which is great. The second part of your question was, remind me?
Are the ones that collaborate the most mature, or / vice versa?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we know things like the banking sector because of regulation for a number of other reasons, lots of reasons. It's money driven. I mean, at the end of the day, that tends to focus people's minds very quickly. So we probably think the maturity is in other sectors, but higher education is growing rapidly, and its collaboration is meaning its trajectory is very steep, which is great to see. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. One more question, maybe before they set up. One more question. Just one more question. Just the last question. If you have more question, maybe you can talk after the flight. Thank you.
Hi, Sean Finnegan. So burning question, MISP, the intelligence sharing platform. It only works if people share and can consume everybody else. Rob was saying earlier on that blame the victim mentality. A lot of the time people don't want to report that. So my question to you is, if people want to share and organizations want to share with the MISP platform, is there a way to like segment the data or caveat the data, yes, or like how much uptake are we seeing with sharing bidirectionally?
Yeah, I think if we look at our first iteration of using MISP from AusCert, it has been in the higher education sector. And what we saw there was oh, this is great, but I'm not doing anything with it. And then we've seen oh, this is great, I'm consuming something from it. And you know, don't take away the benefits of having somewhere you can go to get information, and it can be automated, so it can be machine to machine. Then we've seen some of the more mature universities in Australia who are actively participating in sharing both ways. They're putting their instances in. We're getting to the point now, and Mike, I'm happy if Mike corrects me, where we've got more universities where if they have incidents, they're starting to put their indicators of compromise in there, and that's then pushing out to other universities. But there also is the ability to anonymize that. So it doesn't have to be, you know, if something happens at UQ today, and my Dan, my manager, and his team, they were to put something into that MISP instance for the higher education sector, nobody would necessarily know it's University of Queensland. And there might be a good reason for that. It's not that we don't want to share, because I'm a great believer in sharing, but there might be not the right time to share. So they can put that in, it can then inform everybody else what to be looking for and what to be stopping. And then at a later date, we can be updated, etc. So, yeah.
So you've got a way of decoupling the technical people from being able to share information and not impact the business and all the rest, and still achieve that value by anonymizing it.
Yes,
that's fantastic. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's thanks to speaker once again.
I just want to give a context about the reason why we put these talks here. It is extremely difficult to get published in these conferences. So we have them here to share their best practices. So please ask them hard questions. Thank you.
Okay, let me briefly introduce Hao Gan. He's a PhD student, and he's doing the joint PhD program with Southern University of Science Technology in China and the UQ. He's co-supervised by Associate Professor Guangdong Bai and one professor in there too. Okay, let's welcome him. Please.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Hao, a PhD student in ECS. So today I will present our work on the bugs when we optimize machine learning models. So this work is on the topic of machine learning and software engineering. So it is recently published on ICSI 2023. So now nowadays, we rely a lot on machine learning techniques and enjoy the convenience. Real-world machine learning models can be large. So in the example in the picture, to accomplish some tasks like object recognition, we really use a huge number of images to train a resident model on the server. And as a result, the model size and inference time of the trained model are not suitable for real-time camera or mobile phone or other results-constrained devices. So in this table, the inference step is over 100 microseconds. So it is a huge lag for the real-time frame. So perhaps the latest model of phones can handle this scenario, but the size of models becomes very large now. For example, the large language models are extremely popular these days, and maybe it will encourage more models from other fields become larger to accomplish better results. So the Meta has created Llama language model. It has from 7 billion parameters to over 65 billion. So therefore, we need some optimization to reduce the size before we deploy these kind of models on non-server devices. So there are two commonly used techniques. First is pruning. So pruning can find out insignificant weights and make them zero. As a result, the neurons are deactivated without breaking the structure of the model. The zeroed weight can be compressed effectively and become more lightweight when after we compress this model. It can transfer on the internet or store other devices more lightweightly. And quantization is another technique. It can reduce the size of the precision of weights to a smaller representation, such as we can change from 32-bit floats to 16-bit or even to an integer. So it can make the model quite smaller. So here are the typical steps to optimize the model. We first load the model and apply pruning or quantization techniques as described above. And then we can optionally choose to retrain this model for better accuracy. And finally, we export the model and deploy on our edge devices or mobile phones. However, due to the complexity of machine learning models, the optimization is error-prone. So I retrieve these issues on GitHub, and in this example, we define a specific type of layer and construct a model. But when we try to quantize this model, the framework failed to use the correct content of layers. It tries to call D type to a list, and then it will crash with a runtime error. So this is correct API usage, we define a valid model and use API to prune it. However, it turns out an error. So we call this kind of bugs model optimization bugs or mobs. In this work, we study mobs and figure out their distinctive characteristics from other machine learning program bugs when we try to train them or make inference of them. So optimization is another kind of bugs. So to study mobs, we first retrieve bug reports from machine learning frameworks. Based on the popularity and the support for optimization APIs, we select PyTorch and TensorFlow, and we download the issues from their repository and then filter the model optimization bugs with tags and keywords, and exclude embedded issues such as general questions, feature requests, or some testing errors. And then we label the bugs. We involve two authors to discuss and cross-validate the results to reduce manual errors. So we have three steps to produce high-quality taxonomy of the bugs. So here is our results after we analyze the bugs. First, we review the features of mobs on the general characteristics. So in this picture, it is some temporal data. We notice that if a new version is released, large numbers of mobs are introduced, along with the following changes listed here. So it can be new type of layers such as ReLU and sigmoid in PyTorch version 1.8, and it can be new operations such as new pruning strategies introduced in V1.11. And it can also be the underlying computation library, such as the C++ front-end changed in PyTorch version 1.11. And then we categorize the symptoms of mobs. The majority of bugs are critical and make the model unusable. So they can include crash, which means the optimization directly fails when we call this API, and it can be output corruption. The model does not work properly after we optimize it. And accuracy degradation, it means the model produces wrong results. And they are all very serious for the model deployment because it can either fail to work or produce wrong results. And we also study the time for mob detection and fix. This picture shows the days for exposing mobs. A lot of mobs are difficult to discover and take over 30 days to be reported. And some mobs are also hard to fix. We collect the open issues and count their existing days in this picture. And we can show that some remain unresolved for a long time, over 1 year, and it can also include some severe problems. So that means they are quite hard to fix. And second, we answer the root cause and uniqueness of mobs. So we categorize root causes into 5 types. Operation means the framework failed to handle the operation of layers. Run type means the optimizer does not convert the type correctly. Shape means the dimension of tensors is changed unexpectedly. Data type means the optimizer does not recognize specific data type or your customized class of models. And metadata means the additional information from the models is not properly converted. So due to the time limitation, I will explain the run type and shape errors in detail with examples because they are typical, and other machine learning bugs also include these kind of types. But I will demonstrate why they are distinct because we are using optimization techniques. So this is a bug of runtime during pruning process. A TensorFlow layer can embed another model, which means the layers in the model can be a flat layer or container of layers. So if we prune this model with a container layer, the optimizer fails to convert the embedded model into layers. So we can look into this function, the get prunable layers. It just copy every element without converting them. But in fact, we need to take the layer take the layers inside the container out of them and create another collection. So if without this step of taking the layers, it will produce a runtime error, because in the next step, it will try to compare a model with a layer. So in this example, it can only happen when we try to optimize or prune this model, because only this process is involved with the actual type of layers. But if we use training or using without inference, it will not involved with this kind of steps. And here is another example. It is about the shape error during the quantization. So 2D layer, the optimizer will upscale the dimension of tensors by calling the unsqueeze method here twice. So it will increase the dimension by 2. However, before the optimization is finished, the tensors only squeeze this method for once. So that means it is the dimension is only downscaled for 1. So as a result, the output still has the scale dimensions, and it has offspan error from the original one. So this is also an example of the optimization process influence the structure of the model. So to fix it, we need to use another squeeze function and to match the output dimensions. So only the optimization process can change the layer, but the training and inference does not. And third, we summarize the obstacles for detecting mobs. So usually we use static analysis or dynamic testing to expose bugs. We review existing approaches and analyze what characters of mobs would affect these approaches. So first, for static analysis, constructing a call graph is usually required. In regular programs, we have various effective ways to make the AST, the abstract syntax tree, and build the control or data flow. But in machine learning frameworks, they are written in both Python and C++. So it is challenging for existing tools to distinguish the actual code from the hybrid language. So in the code base, maybe you want to find how the C++ code is chosen by the Python, but it is hard for static analysis. Maybe you need to use debug tools to actually find it out. And for the dynamic testing, we rely on generated test cases to expose this kind of bugs. The generation is challenging for both because of the data constraints. For regular programs, we can construct input with type information and simple constraints. So maybe it is only some if statements and maybe the value range of the parameters. But the constraints for machine learning frameworks can be exponential because the models contains a lot of functional layers, and each layer has some parameters, and they are also their own size. So it is challenging to generate the varied test cases and make sure they are valid. So if, for example, if we change the size here, so a lot of other values should also be changed. And it is hard for the automatic tools to find them out. So maybe they randomly generate other test cases, but they are not valid. So in this work, we conduct the first systematic study on model optimization bugs inside machine learning frameworks. By categorizing the symptoms and root causes, we summarize the challenges in detecting them and guide our following works. So our dataset is open source and has been released on GitHub. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Question? So I asked you to make a hard question. A question. Any question? So yeah, question one, Mark here.
It wasn't clear to me when you talked about the crashes, whether these are mostly happening during the model optimization phase or when the model's being used. Did you distinguish between those two kinds of crashes?
Sorry, it means just call the API to optimize the models, and when we use the optimized models to do some works. So we do not distinguish them because the issue itself does not, the developers does not usually make issues when they crash during the process of optimization. So after they optimize this model, they may not think that it should be reported on the TensorFlow or PyTorch repository. So the data we collected is all about the crash during the framework try to optimize these models.
Okay, because I guess in a way that's less serious than happening when it's being used.
Yes, it's
by a client.
all the issues are prevented users to use the models.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other question? May I ask a question?
Yeah.
How much is degradation in accuracy if you do the optimization?
So in fact, you mean the normal or the abnormal?
Yeah. So let's say you have the original deep neural network, and you optimize that by pruning some of the irrelevant, right?
Yes.
Links and neurons.
So
then how much reduction?
Yeah. So it depends on the setup of the optimization. So for example, the pruning, you can set up maybe how much layers are there out, and for the quantization, you can set out what target data type you will quantize to. So for some successful examples, for example, the ResNet, maybe I will show here. The ResNet. Oh, maybe I will share the screen. So the ResNet here. So before we optimize, the accuracy is about maybe 95%, and after we optimize, it can keep to maybe 90% with just quantization from 32-bit to 16-bit.
Okay.
So they are published for the TF Lite framework, and it is used in production environment on some Android devices.
So how you can use this technique, right, to other types of deep learning model? So can you directly applicable, or you need to change code to what extent you need to change code to apply that to other deep learning models?
So for the API provided by the TensorFlow or PyTorch, it can apply to almost every models, but you need to decide the setup by yourself maybe you need to try what kind of types it is optimal for your scenarios. So here, maybe we need to do for the code. It is just to append another step after you produce the model, but it should be take several setup to select the best the balance between the size and the accuracy.
Okay.
So that means we do not to change the existing code, but just to add some another process after we have the model.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Once again. Yeah. Yeah, may I introduce yourself? You first. Yeah, introduce you. Yeah. Hello, you're Bai Chi is a first year PhD student.
Yes.
Yeah, at UQ. It's very impressive, right? This paper was accepted and presented at ACS,
Yeah.
which is a top tier security conference in the Asia Pacific region. Yeah. Yeah, please welcome Bai Chi. Yes, talk. Bai Chi and
Good morning, everyone. I'm Betsy Chen. I'm glad to be here presenting our work about the investigating users' understanding of the privacy policies of virtual personal assistant applications. This work is on the topic of the security usability and recently published in the HCCS 2023. The virtual personal assistants can handle a wide range of the user's requests, like the playing the music and also making the phone calls or the controlling the smart home device. The VP become popular, like the Google Home in Google and the Siri in Apple, and then it's Alexa in the Amazon Echo. The third-party developers can publish their skills in the Alexa platform. The skills are like the apps for the mobile, and the Alexa is a kind of the platform to publish the skills like the Android or Apple Store in the mobile applications. The users can use such skills for a purpose based on the voice input, like the figure shown here for checking the weather. Okay, thank you. Nowadays, there are more than 1 billion frequent users in the world. The privacy concerns about the personal data has raised high attention among users in recent years. The related works have reported that some VPN apps may stealthily collect the user's private data. As the example shown here, like using the mobile apps, the users have to share their private data about the skill for the skills, like using the drive navigation. The skills will definitely collect the user's real-time location. However, the skills will also collect the user's other private data without any notification. Nowadays, some countries published their data protection regulations to regulate the developers' behavior for the user's privacy, like the very popular regulations GDPR for the Europe and then the CCPA for the United States. So therefore, the Amazon enforced the developers follow the data protection regulations, like disclosing all data handling practices in their privacy policies. Otherwise, they may lead to a huge penalty. In response to the data protection regulations, the developers need to make their privacy policies more accurate. So there's a problem, like such policies are more formal and more longer. Some policies use more long sentences to and more difficult words to describe their data handling practices in the privacy policies. As a result, the users have the difficulties in understanding those policies. Some previous studies have investigated that the usability, the readability of the general privacy policies. They found that the technical terms appeared in the privacy policies are the important factors to affect the user's understanding. The most important thing is that users need to take more time and more technologies to read and understand those technical terms and also the related policies. As a result, the users might skip the reading the privacy policies before using those applications. If the data breach occurs, the users may be placed in an unfair position in the event of the dispute. Based on our observation, we found that the WPA privacy policies contain some technical terms, very specific technical terms, but there are no specific context or the dictionary about such terms to help users understanding of such policies. Therefore, in our work, we aim to investigate the effect of technical terms appeared in the WPA privacy policies, and also find approach to solve it, like how can we improve the user's understanding of such terms in terms of the privacy policies. We take the Alexa skills privacy policies in the WPA apps domain as our data source. We use the existing data set for the Alexa skills privacy policies called the UQAAS21. We then conduct a user study to identify the technical terms appeared in the skills policies and also investigate the reasons about why users think such terms are difficult. Based on the download number of the skills, we obtained 55 skills privacy policies. However, we found that such skills policies are very long documents, like more than 3,000 words. Reading long documents might impose a very heavy load on the users and also might result in the poor quality of the responses. So we need to do the length adjustments for the policies and also for the following user study. So based on the observation, such skills privacy policies are very good structured, like the example shown here. At least they have some small titles of the part of the paragraphs. So we first separate the whole privacy policies into different sections based on such small titles, and then combine some different sections together based on their length. We guarantee that the length of the combined sections must within 3 to 5 minutes reading times. As a result, we obtained 100 representative privacy policy segments for the following user study. For the user study in this stage, we use Amazon Mechanical Turk as our platform to post the questionnaire and also collect the responses from our potential users. The questionnaire contains 3 sections. The first one is called the user's demographics, including some questions about the user's age group, their gender, their education level, and also whether they have the IT-related background. And then is like whether they have read or ever read privacy policies before, either for the website or the mobile apps or the VPA apps. The second part is the annotation task. The annotation task is to collect the technical terms appeared in the skills policies from the user's perspectives. And then is two open-ended questions for investigating users' understanding of the technical terms and also the related policies. This project has been reviewed and approved by the related ethics committee. In the annotation task, the participants will be randomly assigned a policy segment and also asked to annotate the terms. We implement the annotation tool, like the users can highlight and label the terms like the example shown here, and also mark them with education level from 1 to 5. The details descriptions for each education level will be described in the green box, and the users can use this button to add such things. In this annotation tool, we also implement algorithm like at least 3 participants will be assigned in 1 policy segment. In 2 open-ended questions, we let participants list the most difficult terms in their view and also describe the reasons like why they think such terms is difficult. From those reasons, we want to explore the approach, like whether there are some methods to help the users understanding of the technical terms and the related policies. We make the requirements of our potential participants from the Mechanical Turk platform, like the approval rate here and also the number of the completed task by the participants. We finally collected 311 responses from for this stage. Based on these responses, we built our ASPP corpus about the skills price policies, including 2,740 unique technical terms. We first examine whether the user's understanding of the technical terms is related with their background. We separate our participants into IT and non-IT group based on their responses in the user demographics questions. We use a screen survey before in the user study to guarantee that the number of the participants with and without IT background is balanced. We then use the Whitney U test here to compare the marked difficulty levels between the participants with and without IT background, like when they marking the same technical terms. The statistics show that the user's understanding of the technical terms is not related with their background, like the figure in the left-hand side shows the all annotated terms. But when we get it for the easy terms or the difficult terms, we can see that the participants with IT background are more likely give the lower difficulty level than those without IT background for the easy terms. However, if the terms is difficult or outside of their domain, they will regard them as higher difficult than the participants without IT background. So we conclude here, like having IT background does not help participants understand the difficult technical terms appeared in the skills price policies. We then overview analyze the ASPP corpus. We first separate the technical terms into 10 categories based on the GDPR regulation and also their position in the price policies. Each technical term is assigned to a category based on its position in the price policy. Some terms might appear several times in several sections of the price policy, so it will be assigned in the multiple categories. We can see that the data collection, user rights, data sharing, and data use such categories have a larger proportion of the technical terms in our ASPP corpus. Among them, the proportion of difficult terms in the data use and the data sharing is higher than the average difficult term. It's higher than the average proportion of the difficult terms in our ASPP corpus. It means that the users might need to spend more time on reading and understanding those sections. We then use the open card sorting to classify the received comments from 2 open-ended questions. Among 311 responses, more than 90% participants state that they have read a price policy before, either for a website or for a mobile app or for a VP app. However, only a few participants mentioned that they could understand the terms and with the useful context provided by the policy segments. Others claim that the technical terms will definitely affect their understanding of the terms and also of the privacy policies. We then summarize the reasons they mentioned and show in this figure. We list the first two reasons as below. Like the most users think that the privacy policies miss some context about the technical terms. If the privacy policies can provide more details, the users probably can guess the term's meaning and also can use the provided details to confirm their guessing. So we propose that whether adding the context-aware explanations of the technical terms can help our users' understanding. From the results for the stage 1, we conduct our stage 2 for the terms explanation evaluation. Similarly with the stage 1, we use a user study to investigate the explanation's effectiveness. We first summarize the basic guidelines from the previous studies for the explanations generation, like using the simple words and also using the short sentence here. And then in the explanation sentences, we need to avoid using the double negative sentences. And also we need to avoid using other difficult technical terms appeared in our ASPP corpus. We then proposed the two explanation sentences principles. This is the most important things for our stage 2. In the stage 1, most participants mentioned that they can better understand the technical terms if more specific context is provided, and also the bold language is avoided. So we proposed our domain specificity principle to provide the specific and also the transparent explanations for the users. It might avoid the misconceptions from the users. Besides that, some related works have also reported that the privacy concerns of the users. The users think that they might have only have an incomplete understanding of the smart home devices, and also the privacy risks about such things. So we proposed the implication-oriented principle to emphasize the privacy risks for the terms and the related policies. It might improve the user security awareness and also the understanding of such skills like the such smart device and also the related policies. We then select the terms from our ASPP corpus and also generate the explanations using these two different principles for each terms. We then use the multi-choice questions in the questionnaire to evaluate the effectiveness of the explanations and also these two principles. This is an example for one of our multi-choice questions for a term, and also the user interface. In this stage, we separate our participants into 3 groups. The first one is a control group. In the control group, the users will only see the paragraph of a policy containing one technical term, one examined technical terms. And then we are following the multi-choice questions about these terms. And then in the experimental group 1, like similarly with the control group, we are containing the paragraph or policy containing a technical term and also the following multi-choice questions. We add in the explanation sentences here in the pop-up window. And then these explanations will be generated using the domain specificity principle. Compared with the experimental group 1, in the experimental group 2, the explanation sentences will be generated using the implication-oriented principle, also shown in the pop-up window. We didn't break the structure of the policies. In the stage 2, similarly with the stage 1, we use the same recruitment requirements for the potential participants in the Mechanical Turk platform. We totally collected 150 responses in this stage. We then use the chi-square test and also the proportion z-test to analyze the responses of the multi-choice questions from our participants for these three groups. And also we use these 4 accuracy levels for each multi-choice questions. The all correct means that the participants select all correct questions for each multi-choice question. And the part correct means that the users only select the part correct choices for the multi-choice question. The part incorrect means that the users the part of the choices is correct, but others are not correct. The all correct means that the users selected questions are not correct. So the results show that like the statistics of the chi-square test and also the proportion z-test both confirm that the performance of the participants in the experimental group 1 is better than other 2 groups. So we conclude here, like the explanation synthesis can improve users' understanding of the technical terms, especially for using the domain specificity principle. We further analyze the performance of the participants with and without IT background. We use the Mann-Whitney U-test here again to compare the responses of the participants with and without IT background. In total, the participants with and without IT background have a similar understanding when reading the skills original price policies, like the figure shown in the control group. But the scenes are different in the experimental group, especially in the experimental group 1. The statistics show that the user's understanding is related with with their IT background in this group. So we conclude here, like the participants with IT background can better understand the explanation synthesis of the terms and also the related skills privacy policy. The implication of this work can be here for the developers. Our findings suggest to highlight the difficult terms and also provide the explanations or the other meaningful context in their privacy policies. Our findings also confirm that the explanations can improve the user's understanding, especially for the explanations using the domain specificity principle. And for the Alexa skills users, our findings suggested that most users do not understand the Alexa skills privacy policies, even for the users with IT background. In conclusion, we first conducted a subjective study to investigate the user's understanding of the technical terms within the Alexa skills privacy policies. And then we built a corpus of the hard-to-understand terms of the skills privacy policies. We finally proposed two principles for the explanation generation to facilitate the developers and enhance the users understanding of the privacy policies. We also confirmed the effectiveness of such principles and also the explanation synthesis. Thank you for your attention. This is the end of my presentation.
Any question? Question from the audience? Yeah, one question. Yeah. Any other question?
Thank you for your presentations. I really enjoyed it. My question is, what sorts of mechanisms did you apply for internal and external validity threat control?
I'm not sure what you mean by internal or external for the.
So there are some bias which would happen in your environment setup when you are doing like quantitative survey or research approach you are applying there. So which is based on their history, which is based on their demographics from where your participants are. So what sorts of techniques you have applied to minimize that bias?
Sorry, can you?
How can you control the group? So
yeah, we because in this project we use a mechanical Turk platform, so like all participants are from the Mechanical Turk platform. We first use the screen survey like to investigate more than 1,000 participants. And then like because we have the background analysis, so we only control the numbers of the participants with and without any background, but all of them but all of them from the Mechanical Turk. And with like for the results, we also do the user demographics analysis. So I think the diversity for the participants is balanced.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other question? Yeah, I have one question. How do you know that they have a IT background, the IT or software engineering, computer science? Let's say a student's either their bachelor degree at UQ, and they are showing that IP address they cannot understand.
Yeah.
Or what does it mean by that? The
yeah.
can be understood by that.
Because there has a previous study like also investigate the IT background for the users' understanding of the security articles. So we follow in their guidelines, like we list some related areas for the users and also ask them whether they have like at least 1 year IT related works or studies experience, such kind of
So
things.
IT background does not mean that they have background in security.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that should be more clear. That if they not learn about cybersecurity or information security, but they can understand some terms.
Yeah, so we didn't mention the experts. We just use the IT related background for here.
Okay. I think there's when people have some IT background, they can understand better, right?
Yeah.
If the domain specific information is given.
Yeah.
And how about the novice users? So maybe my grandfather or grandmother, they don't have any background at all. So that domain specific knowledge is given, they even still cannot understand the privacy policy at all.
Yeah.
Is there any way that you thought about?
Yeah. So in part of our participants, they are the elders people. So we also do some analysis for this part in the papers. That's why we also consider the general participants for their general education levels, for the readabilities in the explanations. We only when we built the basic guidelines, we only use the simple words and also use the simple sentences, like the short sentences for and avoiding such misconceptions or such kind of things.
Yeah, so that if the domain specific knowledge is given to the maybe those who do not have any background at all. Yeah. Do they have improvements in the or maybe a slight improvement or a large improvement understanding the privacy terms, or no change much?
That's why we that's why we do the control group and the experimental group analysis for the stage 2. Like we separate our participants, and also for each group they also contain some elders people and other kind of we guarantee the diversity of our participants. So that's why and also our results confirm that the explanation sentences can definitely help their understanding.
Okay. So not only this the voice app, maybe general application in Android or iOS, they have a similar, right?
Yeah.
Very long line of terms and condition, right?
Yes.
How do you interpret that too? So if there is any privacy related maybe statements, people do not need, right?
Yeah. Actually, there are some related works has done the investigate the technical terms for the general website privacy policies and also for I mentioned before the security articles. So that's why we consider the WP apps, because we found some very specific technical terms appeared in the policies, like the mental data or other kind of the very sensitive data. Because they are the smart home device. So
All right. One question over there. There.
Thank you. That was a good presentation. I think it kind of follows on to your question a little bit. You were focusing on, I think it was Alexis in your the assistant programs. With other competition in the market, you got like Siri and others. Did you find similar issues with looking into their privacy policies, and are there ways that they can overlap?
We haven't built such data set for the privacy policies, like for the Google Home or for the Siri. We might can do this kind of things in the further study, but not in this paper.
Okay.
Hello. Yeah, thank you. Very good presentation. Interested in, did you come up with any principles of that T's and C's are deliberately complex because they're trying to mine data? Or like, have you got a baseline of that observation? And is there a willingness to simplify T's and C's? Because ultimately, I'd say most people don't read them. Probably 99% of people don't read them.
Yeah, because like just mentioned in the basic analysis for the user demographics, like more than 90% participants in our experiment, they have tried to read a privacy policy before, but they cannot totally understand. So, so also based on some related works, that's one problem, like whether users didn't, why users didn't skip, why they didn't read such policies and skip such policies before using the applications. The one problem is here for they cannot understand. For the for users try to read but cannot understand, such kind of the results can help them. But if they didn't really care about, we might need to use other methods to nudge them to read kind of things.
I mean, on the other side, so on the application developer side, it's probably deliberately.
Yeah.
So I guess it's what's the baseline of your principle based on that side? We've been right, T's and C's have been written by lawyers, not by.
But actually, this kind of the aspect for the security part is not in. It's not related for this project. It's for the privacy compliance. We in our group we also have other students to do such kind of things, like compare the compliance between the regulations and the context of the privacy policies.
Is there an angle to this where consumers can have a voice to sort of go, I'll use applications there where I understand the terms and conditions a bit better? So like, you know, is there opportunity for that?
Yeah. That's why in our further study, we will do the privacy policies automatic generation for the developers, and such kind of the policies can use such methods to improve their readability.
Educate the lawyers.
The lawyers.
So have you found any inconsistency in TNC and actual their collection?
Yeah, there's a paper published in the ASE 2022, also for our group, called the Skipper. They investigate the compliance between the skills, really behavior, and also they claim the privacy policies.
So in this app, have you found any such thing?
Yeah, they actually found some.
So not actually not collecting any private related information, but actually
it's
written form, but they're actually collecting.
Yeah.
One other thought, there might be an opportunity in being able to identify bad terms and conditions. For example, in a.
You can use your mic, please.
Yeah, maybe. Sorry. I'm just thinking in like when I start reading terms and conditions and I start to not like the sound of them, I won't use the application. So I'm wondering, maybe there's a tool that you could build that could help people navigate that complexity and sort of choose more friendly terms and conditions. That might be something people would be interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's no more questions, thanks to the speaker again. Yeah, that's the end of the session. Thank you for attending the morning sessions. We'll have lunch outside, right outside. And as I announced before, the tour will be starting at 12:30. So we depart at 12:30 sharp at the registration desk if you want to join the tour, cyber security facility tours. Okay, thank you.